Okay, well, thanks everybody for attending today's webinar. We're talking about how to create GS1 compliant labels with the NiceLabel software. So GS1, it's a very strong standard out there now. A lot of people get a little bit afraid of it because of the complexity of some of the data, the barcodes involved. So today I wanted to give a brief presentation on the overall GS1 standard. I have a couple slides on that. Then I'll progress into a live demo of our NiceLabel Designer Pro software, and I'll show you how to create a GS1 compliant label. So I'll run through just the standard features of that template, how to create the elements of text and the barcodes, and give you a 1,000-foot overview of the standard. The phone lines are now muted. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them at the end of the meeting today. But NiceLabel, a little bit about us. We have offices worldwide in EMEA, in Europe, North America. That's where I'm stationed out of, in NiceLabel Americas. We also have Asia Pacific offices as well. So we have great global coverage around the world, offering label design software on up to cloud printing and enterprise level packages. But today we're more focused on the elements of label design for compliance labels. Our solutions for enterprise, I talked about cloud-based. Otherwise, they could be server-based too if you're integrating into SAP or Oracle or some other type of ERP system out there. But we have great support for thermal printers. We have over 2,500 drivers for thermal printers on NiceLabel.com. In addition, we have over 70 different brands of printers on our website that you can get the printer drivers from. Otherwise, you can use any standard Windows print driver. So we just urge you to use one of our nice drivers so you have better speed and optimizations and other additional features that work hand in hand with the printer and the software. So today the starting point is NiceLabel Designer Pro. This is our top label designer that we offer. You can design really any type of label template you want. It's very user-friendly. We're on version 6 currently, so it's been through many different versions and updates. So the last couple versions haven't changed too much in the interface because we really dialed in on what people like to see and made things a little bit more user-friendly through some of the steps in creating barcodes or connecting to databases. So we really try to make the label design process simple. And on the screen you can see a sample GS1 label, and I'm going to be recreating this template here in a little bit. But first I want to dive into some of the standard of GS1, and I'll touch on the specifics about the data, the barcodes, what everything means basically. But the GS1 Logistics Label, it basically has 3 different sections. And a section is a logical grouping of information that's generally known at a particular time. So you have this information at hand and you need to input it into the template. The 3 different sections represent different groups of information. The supplier, you have your customer, and the carrier, typically in that order. And this order is really specific to this standard. So you'll see a lot of different variations of this, but in theory you'll have these 3 main sections to work with. And you can see the different from and to information with the proper shipper and consignee data, other service requested information for the carrier and dates, gross weight information possibly. Then you dive into other specific human readable information with the SSCC, the G10, order number, and batch number too. Then you have the 2 barcodes at the bottom that I'll dive into here in just a moment. But in theory, each section has 3 blocks. Each have certain functions. The lowest block contains that barcode information. The middle is the human readable that I talked about. And then the final block really encompasses all the other information that you need to comply with the standard. So diving into the actual GS1 label data, you can see here on the left side is the label template I just showed you, but on the right side we have a breakdown of some of the information. For example, if we touch on the G10, you can see this number starting in 401. This G10, it has an application identifier of 01, and you can see how this is inputted here in the barcode right below, followed by the appropriate data. So the N2, which means it's a numeric field, 2 characters, which is 01. Then you have another numeric field for 14 digits of numeric characters. So that makes up the 401 field there. So then you can dive into other batch numbers, expiration dates, the SSCC. This is at the bottom here. You can see we have an application identifier of 00, which is the numeric 2 field. And then the numeric 18 field would be the following data after that application identifier. So you can see here some of the information, whether it's mandatory or if it's alphanumeric or numeric, just giving you a breakdown of this data. So there's specific standards, a certain amount of digits that you can have. So in NiceLabel, we built in parameters that prevent you from implementing an invalid barcode. So what we do is we'll prompt you if you have not enough digits or too many characters. And in the setup of the barcode, I'll basically show you how you can set up the amount of digits needed, and then you can input variable data after that. So you can see there's a lot of different elements involved in these GS1 type of labels, a lot of different variations of them, but we'll show you the basics of how to get the job done here. So now we have label dimensions and font sizes. The business requirements for most users of GS1 logistic labels, they're met by using one of the following types of labels. Usually it's an A6 label, which is a 4x6 template. Otherwise you can use an A5, which is a 6x8. And that longer label template usually gives you more information, more barcodes can be provided at the bottom. But the label can really be any size that suits the laborer's requirements. But it must be enough to carry all the information required with the GS1 128 barcodes. Factors influencing label sizes include the amount and type of data required by the content and the X dimensions of the barcodes used, and also the dimensions of the logistic unit to be labeled. So a lot of information going into these barcodes. You have to make sure you have the right data filling in the barcode that's appropriate for that application identifier. And usually the human readable fields here, they're going to match up with your barcode values. But some templates have more information, so you just have to be aware of all the potential variables so you can feed data into it later. Now I have the GS1 128 Symbology breakdown. This GS1 128 barcode symbol, it's been carefully designed through a joint operation between GS1 and also AIM Global. The use of the GS1 128 barcode symbols, they provide a high degree of security and distinguishes GS1 system element strings from other non-standard barcode symbols. So the GS1 128 symbology, it's a subset of the more general code 128 symbology that most people are aware of and used to. As defined by ISO standards, the use of the function 1 symbol, which is the FNC1 in the code 128 symbols, that's the first symbol character position following the start character. So you can kind of see how once you create the barcode in NiceLabel, we basically automatically put everything together for you according to this GS1 compliance. So our Barcode Builder, it really helps you through the process. So it's really easy to create these. When you get into the GS1 standard, I have it here, it's about 50 some pages long. It can get pretty complicated. So we try to make things easy in NiceLabel, and we have that Barcode Builder built in to give you some easy ways of inputting the correct data. But basically, in a nutshell, here's some of the data that makes up the complete structure, so you can see, what it's made up of. And if you have a barcode reader, you can always make a barcode scan of that template, and then you can see all these specific characters. So at the bottom of the GS1 label, you have the SSCC Supplier section. And this SSCC element string, it's the 00 character. You'll see that in front of this barcode value. It's for the 00. And it's used for the identification of logistics units. And each individual logistics unit is allocated a unique number. And this number, which remains the same for the life of the logistic unit. When assigning this SSCC, the rule is that an individual SSCC number, it must not be reallocated within 1 year of the shipment date from the SSCC assigner to a trading partner. However, prevailing regulatory or industry organizations' specific requirements may extend this period. The important note here is that the SSCC, it should remain the same for the whole lifetime of a logistics unit. In practical life, the SSCC, it's allocated when a logistics unit is built. So for example, products are manufactured, assembled, and stored on pallets in the production plant. Normally the pallet label included the SSCC. It's applied to the pallet at the end of the production line. The SSCC remains on the pallet unit until the pallet is split in a warehouse or at the retailer. Now for relabeling, the SSCC, it's the key to logistical traceability. Logistic units have to be identified in a standardized way using a SSCC. If a logistics unit is not broken or merged, it is recommended to maintain the initial SSCC throughout the supply chain. If logistics unit is broken, then reconstituted or merged, it is a new logistics unit. So in that case, the party who created the new logistics unit has to create the new SSCC and to record and manage the link between the initial SSCC and the new one. So there is a protocol here involved in relabeling, but in a nutshell, the bottom SSCC section is the one that stayed and one that's retained. So here is the SSCC GS1 Label Template on the right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click File to New. And right here I'm going to tile these next to each other. So you can see back and forth of how I'm recreating this template. Now by double clicking on the background of this label, I'm going to change this driver to a thermal printer. Now if I go to the dimensions, I'm going to make it a 4x6 label template. Zero out all of my margins here because I had a laser printer initially set up as my default, so it carried over those. So just make sure you have the width and height correct and click OK. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to recreate the top portion here of this label. So by using the new text object, I'll be able to add a couple pieces of fixed text. And just click once and left click to drop. And I add the rest of these here while I'm already creating fixed text. In NiceLabel, we also have a lot of label design training videos that step into a lot of the label design, database connection elements. So we have a full YouTube channel that you can take a look at more extensive design videos if you like. Okay, so now I have my pieces of fixed text here. And I can use my line tool to basically separate these fields as well. So I'll do that, start with the easy things to begin with. So I'm basically just clicking and dragging. I can use these little box buttons here to increase or decrease the size of that line. Then I'll do the same thing here. And when anything turns red, it means it's hanging off the label. Okay, now I have the overall fixed text information added. So the next step here is I have my two text boxes here. So I'm going to need to create variable fields. You can see here it's saying I have an Arial 11 font and it's a variable. So if I click on my label now, go up to data. This is where you're harnessing all of your data, all of your variables, database connections. I'll click on variables and I need to select new. So I'm going to name this from. It's a prompt. I'm just going to give it 100 characters since it's a longer field. And it's going to be multi-lined. You can see there's 3 lines here for the address. So if I click the checkbox and bump this up to 3, things should be good there. If I go back here, I'm going to copy this data. Okay, so if I go back into my variables, under prompting, you can type in a default value, and this will allow you to see it here on the screen. Okay, so now I go to my text box, hit the drop-down menu. This is the key to doing variable data. Use existing variable and a select from. Now I can increase the size of this box. If I click here, this is an 11-point font, so I'll just bump this up to 11 and bold it. So now I'll follow suit by adding a to field. 100, a multi-line. And I'll just type that in as a sample. Okay, now again, text box and 2. There's other parameters you can add in here to accept larger fields or longer fields. So we have some other videos that touch on how to have some fail safes in there to make sure your data is going to look okay for longer addresses and that. Okay, so those were the from and to fields. The next would be the SSCC field. For this, I'm going to have to create a new variable, and this one is going to be a 20-digit variable length. So if I click data, go down to variables, and new, type in SSCC for the name, and this one is going to be 20, and this is the actual barcode at the bottom that it's dumped into. There's another trick here though. If I go into prompting, let me type in my value 340 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, now for the validation, this is really key because you have to set this up for value has fixed length. So you want to make sure you set this up. Otherwise, you're going to be prompted later on saying there's a potential for errors. You could potentially add in too long of a value or too short of a value, and that's going to mess up your barcode. And while I'm at it, I can also add the G10. This time I'm going to make it easier on myself. I'm going to just copy it. So if I go back up to variables, new, I'll type in G10 this time. And this one is only 13 characters. So you type in the fixed length. I'll drop in my default value so you can see it. Okay, so now you can see we have G10 and SSCC created. So now this is just going to be one line of text. So we just need the text object at the top in G10. And this field here is 28 point. Okay, so we'll just follow suit and do the same thing for the SSCC. Bump this up to 28. Okay, and I'll move this down a little bit. So last thing we have here for the fixed text, or for the human readable fields, is the batch lot number. So we'll add that next. and this is going to be 6 characters. Okay, and now I'll add this as a variable, as a batch lot. Okay. Now we have the text added. We'll add the barcode value here. So here's the GS1128 barcode. So in order to do this, we'll go to the little barcode icon here, write down the GS1128. Now it's next to my cursor. I just left click to drop it. And now we're going to use the Barcode Builder to create this barcode. Now it's asking me for basically my first application identifier. So 01, that's what I want. It says G10. We're going to do automatic calculation for the check digit, but we're going to use an existing variable. So for this one, we're going to use the G10. So it's already pulling from the one I just created. Now we're going to add the second one in a row. So if you click add, we're going to look for the 10 for the batch or lot number. And again, we're going to use existing variable, select batch or lot. Now they're both together. You can see a brief preview. Life is good. And hit finish. Now it added my barcode. It didn't add the human readable, so I'm going to add that manually. And if you go down to text EAN, I can drag this to resize it. Okay, so that is the first barcode. The second one will be at the bottom, SSCC. So we'll follow the same process here. We're going to use the Barcode Builder one more time. This time we're looking for the 00 SSCC. Automatic check digit once again. And we're going to use existing variable and SSCC. So it's really a very easy process of using the wizard. You just have to know what you're looking for. Make sure you have your variables already created. If you don't, you can create them on the fly as well. So now if we click finish and OK, you have this barcode created, and I'll drop the text EAN2, which is the human readable for this barcode now. And again, you can resize these human readables to fit your needs, see how big you want them. But there's certain parameters and sizes you have to keep them, and that's all going along with the standard. So you can kind of download the standard, get kind of the breakdown there. Otherwise, we have sample label templates you can always use and start from.